Discover the incredible journey of Walt Disney. From bankruptcy to building a heartwarming empire, Walt Disney stood at the edge of that small, dust-choked town in rural America, a mere 23, with dreams grand enough to stretch across the blue skies above. Yet, as he scanned the faded storefronts lining the streets, a heavy weight of poverty bore down on his shoulders. His parents had toiled day and night, instilling hard work and integrity in him, but every moment felt like a battle against overwhelming odds. With a heart that yearned to lift his family from their struggles, he clutched a sketchbook filled with ideas that had the power to bring magic to life. Walt had faced rejection after rejection from the animation studios he idolized. Each no was like a crashing wave, washing over him and pulling his spirits under. It left him dizzy with despair, wondering if his dreams were nothing more than mirages in the hot, dusty air. The streets felt eerily quiet as he passed by familiar neighbors whose skeptical looks reminded him of the dreamers who too often saw their hopes crushed under the burden of economic inequality. Yet, in the warm corners of his tight-knit community, encouragement flickered like fireflies on a humid summer night. The wisdom of doing for one another cast a glimmer of hope, telling Walt that even in tough times, he wasn't alone. "I know you've got it in you, Walt," a neighbor would say, his voice confident, like a lighthouse guiding a ship through stormy seas. Even in the depths of his doubt, the whispers of support breathed life back into him. But the gnawing question of doubt lingered like a shadow. After all, how could he overcome barriers set by others who'd been in the industry far longer than he had? His first major crisis arrived like an unwelcome storm. A mighty animation project he poured his heart into was met with unenthusiastic indifference. The studios passed, their words echoing empty. Just like that, Walt felt the floor drop out from beneath him. The separation from early partners, who didn't share his passion, felt like a stab to the heart. It forced him to confront what truly mattered. The love of his family, once the backdrop to his ambition, now the very core of those dreams. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, a spark ignited within him. Could his innovative animation technique, something no one had dared to try, be the answer? A pulse of excitement coursed through him, buoyed by the supportive shoulders of the townsfolk. They were ready to rally behind him, fueling his fire once more. But deep down, the question still churned. Would this risky venture rise from the ashes of despair or too soon be smothered out? As he reached out to his community for support, sweat beaded his brow. The stakes couldn't be higher. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As flickers of hope began to emerge, a wave of realization washed over Walt. He wasn't just a dreamer. He was a creator, a fighter in a world that seemed relentless. Would his heart and the community he cherished carry him through? Or would his dreams fade away like the last rays of the sun slipping below the horizon? The air crackled with anticipation, leaving both Walt and the reader hanging on the edge, ready to witness if he could rise from the shadow of rejection or sink deeper into the dust of despair. Walt gathered every ounce of hope he could and set to work. The sun rose cast golden light onto his workspace, a makeshift studio cluttered with drawings and crumpled papers. Each stroke of his pencil felt like a heartbeat, full of potential. His sketches pulsed with life as he imagined characters that could leap off the pages and dance across the screen. Fantastical creatures and brave heroes took shape, layers of his soul pouring into every detail. But doubt lingered like a shadow. Would these characters resonate with anyone? Each gathering of townsfolk at the local cafe, behind the wooden counter spilling with steaming coffee and pastries, fueled his heart with both warmth and fear. They whispered tales of his talent, yet questions gnawed at him. How could he keep the latest iteration of his dreams alive? One evening, as he sat sketching in the glow of a flickering lamp, An idea burst forth like fireworks in the night sky. What if he could showcase his animation in a way that no one had done before? A short film, a spectacular display that would blend his new techniques with captivating stories. The vision took hold, and like a rush of wind to his sails, he felt that perhaps this could be the turning point. Walt frantically scribbled notes, piecing together a narrative that would excite the hearts of those who believed in him. He imagined the kids in his neighborhood, eyes wide with wonder, their laughter ringing like music as they lost themselves in his worlds. This wasn't merely a film. It was a chance to inspire, to touch lives, to breathe dreams into existence. For weeks he toiled. When the sun set and the stars blanketed the sky, he pushed further through exhaustion and doubt. He nourished his body with little more than coffee and sandwiches, zoning out the world around him. The sounds of his pencil scratching paper became the rhythm of his life, each scratch a note in a symphony of determination. But with every stroke, doubt wrapped around him tighter. What if he failed again? What if the townsfolk, who had given him their encouragement, turned their backs at the first sign of trouble? He worried, gripping his pencil so hard his knuckles turned white. He needed momentum, and his community's support was crucial. One fateful day he decided to share a sneak peek of his animation. Setting up a small projector in the park, he invited everyone, from mothers pushing strollers to old men gossiping on their porches. A nervous excitement bubbled in his stomach as he stood before them, ready to unveil his heart's work. The crowd murmured, curious but skeptical. Walt felt their eyes on him, but more than that, he felt the weight of their hopes and dreams, their stories entwined with his. Walt pressed play. The animation flickered to life on the screen, colors dancing and characters moving through landscapes filled with magic. Children gasped, hands shooting up in delight. For a moment, time stood still. But suddenly, a dreaded thought crept in. What if the laughter turned to silence? Would they embrace this leap into creativity? Or would it send him crashing down once more? As the first few moments unfolded, the crowd's reaction was palpable. But could it last? Anticipation hung thick in the air. Was this the start of something monumental? Or was he teetering on the edge of another heartbreak? The joyous laughter erupted from the audience, washing over him like a wave. But right then, as he made eye contact with his closest friend standing in the back, a look of uncertainty crossed their face. Walt's heart skipped. A realization dawned on him. Would this be the moment that defined him? Walt's pulse raced as the laughter surrounded him. Warmth flooded his heart, invigorating his spirit. It felt electric, like an unseen thread connecting him to every face in the crowd. Their joy was his lifeline, and for a brief moment, he let himself fully bask in the triumph, the air heavy with possibility. But then, there it was again, the doubt. His friend stood frozen, a shadow under the glow of the projector, arms crossed nervously. Walt's heart ached at the sight. Why wasn't his friend smiling? In that moment, the laughter from the audience turned into a distant echo, swallowed by the roar of the questions racing through his mind. What if this wasn't enough? As the film played on, Walt's gaze flickered back to the screen, his characters moving fluidly, full of spirit. He yearned for that spark, that moment where everyone, especially his friend, could see what he saw. The beauty in failure, the lessons learned, the dreams still clinging to life despite everything. When the animation reached the exuberant climax, the applause erupted. Claps echoed like thunder, but Walt found it hard to celebrate. He couldn't shake the slight unease that had settled in his chest, a feeling that something essential was still missing. The short film ended, and the images faded, leaving only the sound of joyous chatter and encouragement. People rushed toward him, sharing hugs and excited whispers, some even clapping him on the back. But the uncertainty in his friend's eyes weighed heavier than all the praises combined. He needed to address it to understand what was troubling him. "Walt, that was amazing!" a young boy exclaimed, still with stars in his eyes. The laughter from the children again was infectious. It surged through him, igniting a glimmer of hope. Yet he forced a smile while searching for his friend. "Hey man, what did you think?" he called, breaking through the cheerful chaos as he approached. His friend hesitated, a small frown marring his features. It was good. But are you sure you want to do this? That question hung over him like a heavy fog. Walt hadn't expected such skepticism from his closest ally. What do you mean? It's what I dream about every day. I've been working my butt off. This is it. I know. His friend ran a hand through his hair. I just think, what if it doesn't go anywhere? This feels huge, but what if you crash and burn again? The words hit Walt like a slap. They were the stark reality of every failed attempt he'd buried deep within. It threatened to unravel the fragile hope he had just begun to build. Maybe I'm not done crashing yet, Walt admitted, his voice softer, revealing the cracks in his bravado. But it's not about perfection, is it? It's about sharing something real. His friend's face softened, hesitation giving way to understanding. I just don't want to see you hurt again. You put everything into this. I know, Walt replied, feeling the weight of the moment solidify between them. But what if this is the spark we need? What if this builds into something bigger? I need to believe that. Just then, someone in the crowd shouted, "Let us do it again. We want to see more." The call for a repeat sparked a fresh wave of energy, and, caught in its swell, Walt felt the thrill circulate through him once more. Maybe his friend was right. Maybe the fear of failure could keep him from truly succeeding. "All right then," he said, a grin pulling at the corners of his mouth. "Let us give them what they want." As the projector whirred back to life, Walt took a breath, daring to look at the faces around him. A surge of courage flickered in his chest, igniting the thought. Could this truly be the moment everything changed? With a shaky hand on the button, he pressed play again, heart racing in sync with the animated characters alive on screen. But inwardly, he pondered, if he showcased his new film, could he dare to expose his vulnerabilities one more time? The film sprang back to life, colors dancing in front of his eyes. It was strange how quickly the anxiety dissipated, replaced by the familiar rhythm of his narrative. Characters that had once only existed in his mind leaped onto the screen, speaking the words he had crafted painstakingly. Walt stole a glance at his friend, who was caught somewhere between skepticism and curiosity. He could feel the tension hanging in the air, and it sparked a new determination deep within. With each laugh from the audience, Walt's heart began to race with a different kind of excitement. Maybe he could reach his friend's spirit after all. As the film unfolded, laughter bubbled up from the crowd, washing over him like a warm wave. There it was, joy, alive and raw. The connection he craved began to weave its way through his veins. The audience was reacting, not just watching. They were living the story alongside him. But the instinct to check on his friend nagged at him. Was he still there, locked in a fragile cocoon of worry? Walt knew he needed to let him in. After all, it was vulnerability that had fueled his vision. The truth lay not just in success but also in the wisdom of his struggles. He focused on the screen, working to channel every ounce of confidence into the animated characters. Walt watched expressions transform, eyes sparkling, smiles spreading wide. These weren't just random faces. They were people. Each reaction felt like a lifeline thrown in his direction, pulling him away from doubt, away from fear. Yet the nagging concern for his friend pulsed like a heartbeat in the background. The second screening rolled toward its climax, and Walt felt a need to speak, a need to share. As the characters reached their high point, teetering on the edge of triumph, he caught sight of his friend's rapt concentration. Something shifted within him, a resolve emerging from the fear he'd faced for so long. He found himself leaning forward slightly, ready to unfold the truth. As the applause thundered once more, he turned off the projector. The buzzing chatter dimmed suddenly, leaving an almost electrifying silence in its wake. "Hey," he called out, capturing the crowd's attention. "Thank you all for watching. I've loved sharing this with you. But this isn't just about animation, this is a story of hope. The journey can be tough, and there are times when I felt ready to give up. But here we are, together." The faces before him were now more than spectators. They were a part of his journey. He stepped away from the projector and walked closer, Sometimes, the fear of failing can hold us back from what's meant for us. It's not just my story. It's ours. We all know that feeling, don't we? He searched each face, finding nods and murmurs of agreement. The weight of vulnerability pulled heavy against his chest, but the power of openness began to lift it. His heart raced not with fear this time, but with a shared understanding. So, if you've got dreams, chase them. Don't let fears hold you back. Each time we fail, we learn and grow. His friend's eyes softened, a glimmer of pride breaking through the wall of worry. Walt felt himself taking deeper breaths, feeling lighter, freer. Just as applause began to swell again, he turned back to the screen, ready for new beginnings. Let us play around with the next project. I want to do more with you all, explore where this can take us. Who's with me? The room erupted, voices mingling in spirited agreement, but Walt's pulse quickened at another thought. Could this be the push to finally go beyond just building a film? And as he looked to the crowd with renewed purpose, amidst the excitement and applause, a small voice in his mind whispered, what if this was just the beginning and what lies ahead could be even more beautiful? As the applause reverberated off the walls, Walt felt the warmth of connection wrap around him like a favorite blanket. Cheers erupted, and if his heart weren't already racing from pride, it surely would have been from the sheer energy of the room. People were genuinely moved. In that moment, he realized that vulnerability was a two-way street. Not only had he opened up, but in return, they met him with open arms. The buzz of conversation began to swell, and anticipation lingered in the air. He could see excited gestures and animated discussions. Ideas were swirling, like the colors of his film, intermingling in dynamic harmony. Walt smiled, thrilled by the impact he had made. Encouraged by the crowd, he turned to his friend, the one person whose opinion he valued most. Would he see the shift? Did you feel that? Walt asked, his voice threaded with excitement as he approached. They really got it. We can do something special together, something bigger than any one of us. His friend looked deep into his eyes, the skepticism slowly fading. Yeah, I felt it, he admitted, a tentative smile forming. You really connected with them. It's a big deal, man. Something inexplicable shifted in the air, like a weight lifted off both of their shoulders, and for the first time, Walt felt like he wasn't alone in this journey. It was more than just a film. It was a leap into the unknown, and together, they could push against the boundaries that had once confined them. I've been thinking, his friend said, the glint of inspiration sparking in his eyes. What if we take this to the next level? Workshops, community projects, bring people into the creative process. Walt's heart nearly leaped from his chest. That's genius, he exclaimed, envisioning the joyful faces of aspiring artists, each nurtured by the same passion that had motivated him. We could guide them, encourage them to share their stories. We can create a community of dreamers. Suddenly, plans flooded Walt's mind: brainstorming sessions, collaborative projects, and maybe even a local festival celebrating creativity. His fingers tingled with excitement. Did they really want to do this? To nurture and uplift? Let us do it, Walt said, his voice steady with conviction. We can be the mentors we needed when we started. It's about time we gave back. Each word hung in the air, thick with possibility. The thought ignited a fire deep within him, a conviction that their shared journey had the power to ripple through others' lives. As they discussed their ideas, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about them. No, it was about building a bridge to those in search of their own dreams, the ones standing at the edge, afraid to take that leap. His friend nodded along, clearly on board. Their fears had lingered for too long, overlapping the hopes that had been felt tonight. But amid their fervor, a lingering worry tugged at Walt's mind. What if they weren't ready for all that? What if, in reaching for more, they put themselves back at risk again? Do we really have what it takes to pull this off? He probed softly, the remnants of doubt creeping back in, but his friend shook his head, determination shining through. Together we can make it happen. Trust in your story. Trust in us. Walt could hear the heartbeat of their ambition, pulsing as a collective unit. The feeling inside him melded into acceptance. All right then. Let us gather everyone together. Let us share our ideas and show them what is possible. As his words settled, the emotions in the room shifted again. He could almost feel the future unfolding at his fingertips. And with it, anticipation mingled with anxiety danced just like the characters on the screen. But what if this gamble transformed them in ways they never imagined? What if the shadows of doubt slowly began to turn into light? The thought lingered in the air, a question that promised the adventure for them all. A new chapter yet unwritten. Excitement whirred through the air as Walt and his friends stood at the center of a newfound ambition. It was as if the applause from moments ago still reverberated in his ears, whispering promises of what lay ahead. Without hesitation, they began reaching out to their fellow creators, inviting them for a gathering. A large, local coffee shop became the perfect venue, bursting with creativity and bustling energy. A few days later, with freshly brewed coffee and pastries laid out on the table, Walt watched his friends trickle in, each one carrying a spark of enthusiasm. "Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming," Walt called, trying to contain the rush of adrenaline. "Tonight's about us, about community, and about tapping into our creative spirits to create something special together." He paused, looking around at the eager faces before him. "This isn't just about our dreams anymore, it's about all of us." There were nods of agreement. A few murmurs passed among the group, like fireflies igniting the atmosphere. "How do we start?" One voice piped up from the back. It was Sarah, a budding writer Walt had admired for a long time. Walt took a breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle deep in his chest. "Let's brainstorm ideas for workshops and projects. What do you all want from this?" Voices blended, each person throwing out suggestions like confetti film screenings, art classes, storytelling sessions. Each idea added a new layer to the vision. Walt could feel the energy building. What had started as a flickering flame now became a bonfire of creativity. As they reached deeper into discussions, the room filled with laughter and spirited debates. Ideas bounced off walls like echoes in a canyon, and what had felt like a simple gathering morphed into something larger than any one of them could have imagined. Yet as the conversation pulsed with life, Walt sensed a shadow creeping in at the edges of his mind. The excitement of possibility was intoxicating, but he couldn't shake the worry that loomed over them. What if the excitement faded? What if they fell short in bringing their ambitious plans to life? Tension trickled into his thoughts, but he pushed it aside. A hand raised Ben, a painter with a reputation for wild abstract pieces. "I think we should have a monthly showcase. If we invite local artists, we can build a community right here." "Yes," someone else chimed in. "We can have a beats night where local musicians share their work." Before long, the coffee shop felt more like a launching pad, and everyone leaned in closer, eyes bright with passion. Each suggestion sparked new ideas that flickered throughout the room. They began sketching out a timeline for their first event. Walt jotted down notes feverishly, his heart racing as visions of success danced in front of him. A local festival celebrating creativity, the vision was taking shape. As the gathering started to wind down, the atmosphere still crackled with energy. The group rallied together, chattering excitedly, laying out a plan for their first project. Walt's friend turned to him, admiration twinkling in his eyes. "Tonight was magic, wasn't it? I can't believe how far we've come," he said, beaming. But within Walt, uncertainty swirled like a distant thunderstorm. Was this all too good to be true? He wanted to believe in their dreams, but the fear of letting everyone down settled in. He shook off the thought, reminding himself of the joy bursting like fireworks in the room. "Okay, everyone, let us meet back here next week to finalize our plans and really take this momentum into something amazing," Walt called, his resolve wrapping around each word. As the evening drew to a close, Walt felt a flicker of hope ease the tension in his chest. He glanced around at the creative faces illuminated by the warm coffee shop lights. This was just the beginning, but questions nagged in the back of his mind. Would they really sustain this energy? Would it lead to something real? The ringing of the bell at the shop door sounded like a starting gun, and as they stepped out into the night, A thrilling journey awaited, filled with unpredictable twists. What awaited them on this new road, and would they be able to navigate the struggles along the way? The week passed in a blur of anticipation and planning. Walt found himself caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, each day filled with deliberations over coffee and enthusiastic conversations with friends. As the sun cast its golden glow over the morning streets, he woke with a sense of excitement mixed with dread. How do I do this? He whispered to himself while staring at a blank notebook page, a fresh ink pen poised like a sword ready for battle. He wanted this community to flourish, to be a beacon of creativity. But those deep shadows of doubt crept in again. What if he messed it up? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he arrived at the coffee shop. The moment he walked in, he was met with warm smiles and the comforting aroma of roasted beans wafting through the air. Friends gathered around, each person plugged into the ongoing pulse of ideas and laughter. Walt took a moment to admire the buzz before calling everyone to attention. "All right, everyone. Let us get started," he said, trying to infuse his voice with enthusiasm. There was no room for the doubts that lurked in his mind. He needed to be their anchor. Sarah was quick to rally the troops. "I've been thinking, what if we formed smaller groups to focus on specific projects?" With her suggestion, energy surged around the table. "We could have a film team, a group for artists, and writers, each focusing on their strengths." Heads nodded, eyes wide with eagerness. Walt felt a sense of relief wash over him. This felt right. Their collective energy lit a spark inside him. Ideas flew back and forth like confetti. Someone proposed collaboration with local schools, offering creative workshops for kids. Another suggested a community wall for artists to showcase their work, inviting the community in to participate. As the night unfolded, they drew colorful sketches and outlined plans. Yet, amidst the excitement, Walt's heart pounded louder, drowning in the fear that none of it would come together. He took deep breaths, partly for the nerves but mostly to keep himself calm. "Let us set a date for our first event," Ben exclaimed, breaking through Walt's fog of worry. "How about in 2 weeks? We have time." Eyes twinkled as everyone murmured in agreement. 2 weeks felt achingly close, but with their collective will, it seemed possible. After brainstorming until the moon lit the skies, they finally began to wrap up. There was a cacophony of chatter, laughter, and random high fives. "Walt, hold up," Ben called, slipping out of the crowd. The two found a quiet corner as the rest celebrated around them. Ben, visibly animated, said, "You've got to believe in this. You're the heart of it. Whatever you're feeling, everyone here believes in it." Walt swallowed hard, wanting to absorb his friend's words. "I just worry about letting everyone down," he confessed, eyes darting between the cheerful group and the flurry of creativity in full swing. "You're not alone in this. We're all counting on each other. You might be leading us, but it's a team." At that moment, free from the shadows of doubt, Walt felt something bloom inside him. Maybe they could do this together. As they departed, the cool night air buzzed with energy and possibility. Walt glanced back at the warm glow of the coffee shop, a beacon marking the beginning of their journey. The path ahead was jagged and uncertain, but hope danced like stars in the dark sky. What challenges awaited them as the days drew closer to their first event? Would their dreams collide or flourish in the light of reality? Walt woke up the next morning with a jolt. The reality of the upcoming event settled heavily in his chest. 2 weeks. Time seemed to race past him, yet every moment felt like an eternity. He took a shaky breath and glanced at the sunlight streaming through his window, illuminating the world outside. It was beautiful and full of promise, just as he hoped their event would be. As the day unfolded, Walt decided to take action. He sat down with his notebook again, scribbling notes that flowed from his heart. Ideas spilled onto the pages, his vision of the event becoming clearer with each word. A mix of excitement and nerves buzzed within, fueling him forward. On his way to the coffee shop that evening, he practiced his speech. The words felt awkward, tumbling over one another in his mind. Would he be able to inspire them? Would he show them the passion that he felt? He cringed at the thought of stumbling over his words in front of everyone. When he entered the shop, he was greeted like a hero coming home. Friends waved him over excitedly. Amid the laughter and chatter, he felt a wave of warmth wash over him. The atmosphere crackled with energy. They were ready to dive deep into the planning phase. "Okay, everyone," Walt called out, heart pounding. "Let us talk details. We need to make this event unforgettable." He outlined his thoughts, speaking passionately about the community wall, the workshops, and collaboration opportunities. As he spoke, he caught glimpses of nodding heads and broad smiles. The fear simmering inside him began to fade, replaced instead by a sense of purpose and determination. "Let us divide into our smaller groups," Sarah chimed in again, her enthusiasm infectious. "We need to assign roles and responsibilities. Who wants to lead the workshops? What about the media team?" Hands shot up across the table. A buzz of chatter erupted as people exchanged ideas. It was thrilling to witness. He watched as each group formed, their energy weaving a tapestry of creativity and excitement. Walt felt the shadows of self-doubt fading away, replaced by the brightness of the collective spirit. As ideas crystallized and plans solidified, they prepared a checklist of tasks. When the groups formed, Walt moved from table to table, offering encouragement and listening to their thoughts. With each conversation, he sensed the belief growing not just in him but in each other. But as the evening began to wind down, a thought crept back in: what if something went wrong? He could feel the pressure building as they discussed logistics, outreach, and funding. The fear of failure whispered to him, wrapping its fingers around his resolve. "Walt?" Ben's voice broke through his thoughts. "You okay?" Walt looked up, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about everything." Ben leaned in closer, his intensity palpable. "You've got this. And remember, if any hiccup happens, we'll handle it together. It's a team effort." "Thanks, Ben," Walt replied, grateful for the reassurance. His friend's faith wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. As they parted that night, Walt felt the weight of their plans but also the lightness of shared dreams. He glanced around the shop, vibrant and alive with laughter, and couldn't help but smile. But just as he stepped outside, a chilling wind swept through, cutting through his thoughts. Something tugged at the back of his mind, a question, a nagging uncertainty. What if his vision faltered before the finish line? Would they all stand united if chaos emerged? Or would the cracks tear through the eagerness that bonded them? The journey was only beginning, but he could feel the stakes getting higher. And in the stillness, that suspense hung like a thread, waiting to snap. Walt awoke the next day with the lingering tension still etched in his heart. 2 weeks. The reality of his plans settled like a weight, but a flicker of excitement danced alongside it. The sun was bright again, but today it felt a little different, like it was nudging him to face his fears head-on. After a quick breakfast, he flipped through his notebook one last time. The pages were filled with ideas and sketches, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. But what gnawed at him was that underlying question. What if it wasn't enough? He pushed the thought aside, taking a deep breath and vowing to give it his all. The community center was buzzing when he arrived. People were already setting up tables and organizing supplies. The air felt electric. Walt's heart raced as he took in the sight of his friends working hard, each person contributing. They looked up as he entered, their smiles brightening the room. "Walt," Sarah shouted, waving him over. "We've been waiting for you." He approached, gratitude swelling in his chest. This was his team, his community. "Is everything going okay?" "Better than okay. We've set up the logistics," she replied, her eyes gleaming. "And we even have a few ideas for outreach that I think you'll love." He could see the excitement reflected in everyone's faces. It was contagious. Together, they spent hours brainstorming, the walls of the community center echoing with laughter and chatter. At times, Walt couldn't believe how far they had come in just one day. But then, just as he settled into the rhythm of camaraderie, an anxious whisper inside him struck again. He noticed a few faces quieting, a flicker of uncertainty crossing their features during discussions. They were grappling with the weight of the task ahead too. "Hey folks," Walt said, raising his voice to catch their attention. I know it feels daunting. We're taking on a lot, but remember why we're doing this. It's not just about the event. It's about bringing everyone together. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, and for a moment, the tension lifted. He could see their shoulders relax, the corners of their mouths turning up into smiles again. But as the day wore on, he felt the shadows creeping back. With every plan they made, his own fears zoomed back into focus. What if they didn't get enough participants? What if people didn't show up? What if their hard work crumbled? Walt, Ben said quietly, pulling him aside. I can see you're worried. What's on your mind? Just what if we fall short? What if the community doesn't connect? I can't bear the thought of letting everyone down, Walt confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Ben placed a hand on his shoulder, warmth spreading like a bomb. You won. Even if obstacles arise, we have each other. Focus on the positive. We're building something special here, and that means something even if it happens step by step. The sincerity in Ben's words wrapped around him, reassuring yet challenging. Walt realized that the fear would always be there, but it didn't have to guide him. Instead, he could choose to embrace the uncertainty and keep moving forward. That evening, as they wrapped up for the day, Walt lingered behind, looking at the notes left scattered across the tables. There was something undeniably beautiful about the chaos of it all. But as he stepped outside into the cooling night air, a thought gripped him. What if this was just the warm-up for what lay ahead? The real challenge wasn't just to gather people for an event. It was about creating something meaningful, a connection that could last beyond those 2 weeks. Would they truly come together, or would their excitement dissipate like smoke? With his heart beating heavily, he resolved to face whatever came next. Now he needed to prepare not just for the event but for the possibility of transformation that awaited them all. What would happen when they finally opened the doors? Would they connect in ways he never expected? The day had arrived, and excitement crackled in the air like static before a storm. Walt entered the community center, heart racing in sync with the rapid pulse of the bustling crowd. Laughter echoed through the hall, the sound and orchestra of hope and anxiety harmonizing beautifully. The walls were alive with color, brightly decorated posters showcasing the array of workshops, each designed to ignite creativity. With every step, Walt felt the weight of the moment pressing down, but he swallowed the fear. Today wasn't just about him or his aspirations. It was about the community, the people gathered around him, sharing their dreams, ambitions, and fears. He glanced at the familiar faces, friends and allies eager to take part in this greater journey. Hey, everyone, he called out, raising his voice above the chatter, drawing smiles and nods. Are we ready to kick off our first event? Cheers erupted like fireworks, bursting through the air. Walt couldn't help but smile, a broad grin stretching across his face as he looked at the energy radiating from each person. But beneath that joy, an anxious flutter lingered in his gut. As the day unfolded, workshops began in full swing. Walt moved from room to room, watching his friends lead sessions filled with laughter, creativity, and collaboration. Kids painted, teens filmed, artists sculpted, color splattered everywhere, like the vibrant strokes of life. He watched as the joy on their faces transformed with each passing minute. But doubt crept in again. What if they didn't capture the magic? Would people take what they learned and carry it forward? Or would their dreams wither under the weight of routine? Walt, come over here. Sarah hollered from the arts corner, excitement spilling out of her voice as he joined the group. Youngsters smiled, hands brightly colored with paint. Can you help us with this mural? Absolutely, he replied, heart swelling. He grabbed a brush and joined their energy, each stroke a testament to unity and creativity. The mural blossomed, taking form under their collaborative effort, and soon the kids were giggling, their laughter ringing with unabashed joy. The shadows of doubt began to recede. Seeing that infectious happiness reminded him why he started this journey. To uplift and connect, to make magic in their lives. Yet, the haunting thoughts of potential failure still tugged at him. Just then, as he stepped back to admire the mural's progress, His friend Ben appeared beside him. "You look deep in thought," Ben said, brow raised. "Everything okay?" Walt turned toward him, the smile wavering for a moment as he fought the doubts threatening to surface. I want this to mean something. What if we're not enough?" "Walt," Ben replied, his voice steady, "look around you. This is what it's all about. Everyone else engaged. They're learning and creating because of what we started. You don't have to be perfect. It's about the journey together." As the day wore on, hearts brimmed with laughter and warmth. Families interacted, friendships blossomed, and dreams began to take root in the soil of shared experiences. Walt felt that connection, tying them together like a rich tapestry. At the end of the day, as the sun lowered its golden glow, everyone gathered for a closing circle. Walt stood at the center, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you all for being part of this amazing adventure. We've created something beautiful together, and this is just the start." He took a breath, letting the warmth of their energy envelop him. On cue, spontaneous applause broke out. The sound washed over him like a warm tide, and in that moment, he felt the anxiety lift. He was not alone in this endeavor. As the final light of day faded and laughter echoed in the stillness, Walt locked eyes with his friend, an understanding passing between them. They had faced doubts, yet together, they had created something that transcended fear, something truly magical. Together they will continue to build this community, supporting each other through every twist and turn. Walt felt alive, exhilarated by the possibilities that lay ahead. And in that moment, he knew, fears may rise, but together, they could conquer anything. As he watched his friends share ideas for future projects, new workshops bursting with enthusiasm, he realized their story had only just begun, filled with lessons, laughter, and endless creation. Now was the moment that defined them, pulling them out of shadows and planting them firmly in the light. Walt beamed at his community, filled with pride. This was their collective heart, beating with dreams. They had empowered each other, opened doors, and forged a path toward a future filled with endless possibilities. So if you're inspired by this journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our stories, our growth, and our dreams. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this energy to others. Comment your feelings about this incredible transformation. We want to hear your thoughts, your stories, and share in this journey together. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Let's light the way for each other. Together we can create magic.